Okay, so what I'm going to do here then is I'm going to put together a couple of different sets of dreams here that do I find sort of match in very, very well with the kind of dreams I've already recorded today. And I'll explain that as we go. But there's a lot of common themes I notice, especially in the first dream I'm going to cover off. But there will be some scripture bits and pieces as well that we're going through. Not so much. Actually, I think there is. I think there is throughout. Okay. Anyway, so this first set of this 3 dreams I'm going to go through here very, very briefly. These are all the 16th of October, 2025, and then we'll be jumping into a different dream book entirely, which, to be honest, only jumps forward 2 months roughly anyway. But this first one then, so this is all set where we're playing on an old I/we, so it's me and my wife. We're playing on these arcade machines, and it's the type where you have your spaceship, let's say, at the bottom, and you've got all these enemies coming in. You're just shooting. It's a very, very basic old retro style kind of arcade machine, and you're avoiding obviously the what would you call it, like lasers and stuff coming in, and the asteroids and stuff coming towards you. Yeah, that kind of style. It was a game that was an older game, and it was being re-released, and my wife could not wait for this to come out. I wasn't very keen on it at all because I couldn't really see the appeal. It was all because it was basically sort of black and white, like a grayscale kind of look to it. And it was slow moving and stuff like that. And I preferred the more modern version that was in colour, and it moved a lot quicker, a lot better. And actually, the enemies were a little bit easier to kill. So what she was shooting at was rocks, as I said, so asteroids maybe, and also these long sort of snaky, Chinese dragons, those sort of snaky ones. And they took a lot more hits because obviously they're a much, much longer body, and you're hitting each part of the body to make it smaller to finish it off. Whereas these rocks were, they were, I can't remember if they needed more hits, but they were just a little bit easier, I found, to take these ones out anyway. But she liked this retro style where, she had a joystick kind of thing, and just really, really liked it. And we found out that it's going to be released in a few days or so. So she's really excited for this new release of an old game, I suppose. Yeah. So dream two. So this was a house party environment, and so it's a house party at a previous house, and I'm not sure what I mean by that, and trying to get something to eat. So unfortunately, a house party environment, whatever that may look like in this scenario, but unfortunately, all the food that was being offered was all Muslim food. And so I said that I wasn't going to eat anything that was halal. I just wasn't going to eat anything that was halal. So I avoided all the meats that there was, everything that there was there. And all I managed to find really was a plain cheese pizza. And so I went for that. Yeah. So that's all there was really to that dream. And then dream 3, similar to the previous one, really. So the one I just mentioned. So however, this time I was in more of like a canteen area. And I was trying to get something to eat, but had arrived a bit late. So I have a feeling, I put here, it could have been, at my basically the first job that I ever mentioned. So when I talk about office environments, I talk about office environments quite a lot in my dreams. This is the office, my original office I first worked in. That's where I believe we were in, like the lower ground where it was a canteen. But there was very, very little food there to actually eat. So it was all pretty much gone. And I was also trying to get a drink. But the drink that was available was this kind of challenge drink. So a little bit like you get in bars and pubs, where they might have some sort of a challenge that's priced a little bit lower than it should be really because of the amount of food, but it's like a challenge, where you have to do it. This was like a challenge drink though. So it was a drink. It was this really, really super, super thick milkshake. It looked like it had all like whipped cream and stuff like that on the top. That's what I thought it was anyway when I ordered this thing, but it actually ended up being buttercream. So if you think like cake buttercream on top of a thick milkshake, it was really heavy going. And I tried to drink it, but it was so thick that I could see why it was a challenge, because it was mainly this buttercream was kind of like really clogging my throat, I suppose. And I was actually really concerned that this was actually maybe even quite dangerous, because I couldn't swallow this buttercream. It was kind of all thick and clogging up my throat, and I was worried that I was just going to stop. I felt like it could actually stop me from breathing. So instead, I rather than doing this challenge thing, I think I took like a sip of it, and I was like, this is too much. Instead, I had just had some little leftover food that was around, following all the others doing all the feasting and stuff like that, and I'd missed it. So that's those 3 dreams. As I said, I don't know if I did mention, there was a dream 4 and a dream 5, but the dream 4 is massive as far as what's detailed there, and it doesn't really match up too much. It does in certain parts, but I'm gonna break them up a little bit. So I'll just go through the meaning then. So thoughts, dream 1. So it made me think of, so I've put a couple of thoughts here, because I was really unsure about that first one. If you remember, that's the arcade one I'm talking about. So you've got the black and white machine and the color machine, and based on what I said, I filmed today, was that it showed the 2 different realms. In my dream, this demonic attack thing I had last night, everything was in color until I was getting attacked, and then it went to grayscale. So same sort of thing, black and white sort of picture, how it looked. And that's actually how I've experienced the spirit realm. Is you'll get plenty of sort of demonic attacks, and everything's in color, and it's completely normal. But as soon as they're trying to actually take you out of your body, my experience has been that it goes black and white, and you quite often have a high frequency background noise. Sometimes you can have like an air rushing sort of noise. All sorts of strange sort of stuff happens. But I thought maybe it could be talking about something to do with, I don't know. I'm trying to think, like something to do with spiritual realm. Well, that would be the grayscale, and I preferred the normal. Don't know. Don't know. Could be something to do with that. I'm just sort of, as I said, trying to sort of notice that I had that kind of match today. But it also made me think of maybe comparing the Old Testament to the New Testament. Maybe is what it was talking about, the old and the new. And she was really excited about this old one. I didn't really see the appeal, and I preferred the sort of slightly flashier version, which I guess would be the New Testament in that example. The other bits I thought of as well was that what she was shooting at is she was shooting at rocks and dragons. You've got this Chinese dragon thing, and you've got these big asteroids coming in. And I thought, was that representing a rejection of God, who is obviously represented as the rock, and also rejection of Satan as well, in that she was shooting that, meaning, what, does she not believe in either, or but it was a dragon, and obviously the previous dreams I've filmed today have been about a dragon as well. So I thought that was an interesting sort of thing, which is the only reason why I included it. Okay, that's the only real reason. But the main ones I wanted to cover off here were like 2 and 3, really, mainly 2. So dream 2, then, this was the one obviously that was going back to it, find it. Dream 2, that was the one where there was all the food was halal, so it's all Muslim food and stuff like that. And I was specifically saying, I'm not eating that meat. I'll find something else to eat. Okay. Now that does link in with scripture, so that's where we're going to take this next anyway. So this did make me think immediately of Paul, where he's talking about not eating food that's offered to idols, which is in 1 Corinthians 8, 9, and 10. And the reason I mention this is because halal meat is actually prayed over. So at the point of slaughter, if it's halal, what's said is Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. Okay, you've probably heard that before. And it means, in the name of Allah, Allah is the greatest. That's what it means. So killing in the name of Allah. Okay, well, in slaughtering the meat itself. And it's said at the moment of slaughter. There we go. So meaning the life is being taken in God's name, making it allowable to be eaten. However, there is still meats that cannot be eaten, which is, so summing up, finishing that there. So Muslims don't eat pork, for example, which is the same as, Jews don't eat pork, as in, due to Judaism, that say they don't eat pork. So I guess people from Israel who don't believe in all that sort of stuff will just eat whatever they want to eat. But I was just going to sum up kind of a little bit here of what's said. So I said 1 Corinthians 8, 9 and 10, but also summing up 1 Corinthians 10, 14 to 33, Paul is saying about fleeing idolatry. Have no fellowship with demons, implied by idol worship, and don't eat food in an idol's temple if it troubles your conscience, or if someone points it out. For whether you eat or drink, whatever you do, do all things to the glory of God. So you can eat halal, technically. You can eat halal if it doesn't concern you. But if it does, of course, concern you, or causes problems to those around you, then of course you abstain. You don't eat it. So don't eat pork around Jews, as would be an example if it causes them a problem or a Muslim a problem, and obviously getting the delivering the message of the gospel. So you just wouldn't do that. You'd be respectful, I suppose, is what it's basically saying there. And meaning as Christians, we have no limits on obviously what we can eat, but others do, and so they can be sensitive to that. So this is covered off in Acts 10, verses 9 to 16, also detailing this is Peter's vision, where he sees a sheet coming down full of unclean animals, and he hears a voice telling him to kill and eat. With it repeated, yeah. What God has cleansed, you must not call common. Meaning Peter should not consider Gentiles as common or unclean, as set out clearly in Acts 10:28. Also, symbols of the sheet is of as potentially representing the four corners of the earth. And interestingly, I've got one that's called Four Corners, which I may well end up doing next. May well do that next. The other view is, of course, is God telling Peter that there is no common or unclean animals anymore in the new covenant, and so all dietary kind of laws are abolished. And this is reiterated in Mark 7, 19 to 20, but also goes on further to explain it in following verses as well. So weirdly, that is what was talked about in one of my really recent videos. I can't remember what that was, but that was I literally quoted that exact same one. So I was talking about my time as a Seventh-day Adventist, and I went through a stage of abstaining from certain meats, and I felt like it was a period of testing personally. But I actually quoted those exact same things I was quoting literally yesterday. Was it day before yesterday? It was really recently. So I thought that's what it would probably be talking about to a certain extent, is that obviously I am in this dream, saying I'm not going to eat any of this food because it's been, because it's halal, it's Muslim sort of food. I'm not going to eat that. But basically sort of saying, well, you can eat it, I mean, there's stuff that talks about obviously not eating things that have, been sacrificed to demons and stuff like that. So that's certainly something to consider, as well as far as the meaning goes. But dream 3 then. So dream 3. So this was one, again, to do with being in a canteen, wasn't it? Kind of like, somewhere to get some food. It was connected to my work. It was, again, as far as I know, but it looked like the venue was potentially the canteen that we used to have in our office. This challenging drink then. Challenging drink. So the milkshake meaning. So I put here, I wonder if it's talking about milk being God's word to young believers, and that maybe I'm moving on, because it does talk about, getting to the meat as well, and not just milk being kind of like for babies, obviously, and then they move on to solid food later on. But obviously, if you're in early stages, then you just stick to the milk. Keep essentially, let's get the basics understood first, and then you move on to something that's a bit more, to it, let's say, as far as understanding scripture and that kind of stuff. So it looked like I was maybe moving on. This milkshake was like super, super thick, super, super creamy. And the usage of buttercream. meaning that I was, maybe growing in understanding, obviously the Bible, and had moved on from just milk. So this, when it talks about this, it's in 1 Corinthians 3 verses 2. But my concern was how I was actually worried that I was going to be able to cope, or whether I was going to choke on it, which can mean obviously things like being incapable, communication being stopped potentially, stifling the spirit, those kind of things. So I think that's the dream book. But there was, I think I maybe was looking up choking. I think I was looking up choking. Yeah, and I think that's where I got those kind of things, was to do with where I was incapable, communication being stopped, stifling the spirit, kind of holding back, that sort of thing. Also, there was a challenge drink in that maybe it's not easy, faith, the Christian life. I'm not really 100% sure. And as always, maybe it's nothing. I went with leftover food. So rather than going for this, I went straight to food, actually. Left by others that were feasting. So I guess, again, positive maybe in that I'm having solid food, rather than the milk. But I'm having leftovers. So could this mean I'm taking in what others have been eating, but pieces? Maybe like YouTube viewing is of many. Yeah, maybe it is talking about that. So those others, they're very, very competent, the preachers and stuff like that. That maybe I'm taking bite-sized sort of bits there of multiple different, great preachers and stuff like that, YouTubers. Maybe that's what it's talking about. I was taking the leftovers. I can't help but think of another one I've had, of course, which is the breadcrumbs one, which I filmed, which is, again, is talking about something similar. It's where I had a friend called Chris who was offering me a plate that just had crumbs on it, and I saw that as basically Christ and the breadcrumbs thing that you see from the, is it the Syrophoenician woman? Yeah, I'll cite that probably as well. It could potentially be that as well, because I'm taking leftovers. I've not got I've come in late. So if you see that as like Gentiles, we're arriving to the party a little bit late, aren't we? Because of obviously all the promises have been given to Jerusalem. Sorry, the Jews first, or Israel first, and then it does talk about in the New Testament where Jesus is talking about he's come he's come to the nation of Israel. He's not come to the Gentiles necessarily. Obviously there are Gentiles that would have been saved, and just going to smack the camera there. So I think that's what it's talking about. So I'll end that one there for that particular dream, and then we'll move on to the next one. So the next one, as I said, was a couple of months later, was it? Yeah, the 8th of December 2025. So this one's talking about food, which is why I've put them together. I imagine I have stacks and stacks about food. Lots and lots of dreams about food. Lots of dreams about offices. Lots of dreams about cars. Really, really frequently. But this one, it's talking about food poisoning aspect. So again, I'll start it off with, it may be nothing. But it started with me getting lost in an open office environment, struggling to find my workplace, my work sort of space. I was trying lots of doors, and they kept on being locked. So I had a pass, and I kept on trying the pass. I couldn't get through the doors. I just didn't. Trying the doors that were locked and needing passes, and I didn't get through the doors because I didn't have this pass, making me think of another video, which is access all areas. That's a really interesting one, that one. And also other ones such as no signs, which are similar ones in office-based environments. I hope I go through this in a bit of detail, because I'm thinking that could be talking about something that because if I'm linking it into that access all areas question mark kind of one, well then that does kind of I think I really understand what that's talking about. So if I'm getting a similar thing said here, probably means the same sort of thing. Anyway, this is the main one though, because then dream 2, it then moves on to the main part of the dream, which is involved an old friend, really old friend, called Aaron. Now, I filmed one really, really recently, where I had Aaron as, I think, the old friend Aaron. I think it was, who I haven't seen in like 15, 20 years, like a long, long time. I can't even remember what that was, but it was, I'm sure I filmed that in the last couple of days. And there was another one where there was Aaron from my church as well. So Aaron seems to have come up quite a bit, and they seem to all be bunched weirdly with my videos, all bunched together. So I don't know whether that's because of trying to help me to understand by putting these all together close one after another if I see some common themes. May well be. So maybe there'll be some notes after this or in the future when I hear them all back and then think, are they all connected? No, maybe. Anyway, so Aaron. So he's had, I've put here, it's come up a couple of times now, and never previously featured in any of my dreams. There you go, nor someone I've had contact with for maybe 15 to 20 years. Anyway, he was designing a garden. And even in the dream, I was acknowledging that it'd been absolutely ages since we'd seen each other. Another part involved me being in his kitchen where he was preparing some food. So he had some kind of, I put on here like it was some sort of a thing in his kitchen, a bit like a slow cooker, or it was more like a kind of like a big grill, but the kind of like big iron sort of like skillet sort of thing that he was cooking in. It was a bit like I put here, it was a bit like an indoor barbecue, really. Tons and tons of smoke all going up, and where you'd slap some meat on, it starts sizzling straight away. That kind of thing. It was that kind of thing that he was cooking on. He was cooking some meat on, and he was talking about, or it may well have been somebody else who was in the kitchen actually, was talking about a work colleague who'd got terrible food poisoning from some chicken from not being cooked properly. It hadn't been cooked properly, and he ended up getting loads of spots all over his face. And I said, maybe, I actually said to them, well, maybe it's hives, because I was actually aware in the dream that actually happened to me. I don't think it was to do with raw meat though. So again, that's interesting because I've actually done a video about raw meat recently, which is odd. So there's just a lot of these connections that were coming in with these few that I was kind of reading through. So the raw meat aspect was interesting. The multiple sort of Aarons aspect as well, which was quite strange. So cooking meat. So it was a case that this person hadn't cooked the meat thoroughly enough, this chicken, and it was raw, basically pretty much raw chicken, which oddly was what was in my raw meat one. That was literally chicken breast. Not that it specifically says it here, but it does say it was chicken. I don't understand the meaning on that one. But all these spots on his face. And I mentioned here how that actually happened to me. Yeah, it did. I was eating some Mexican stuff. It was like burrito. Was it fajitas? Yeah, I was eating some fajitas, and it was actually. I don't know whether it was ever so slightly out of date, like just out of date. But I thought, it'll be all right. And I ended up having all these hives. I've never had that before, but these horrible, really big spots all over my face, all over my scalp and stuff like that. So I was scratching my head. It was horrendous. It's the first time I've ever had that before. But yeah, that was in my 20s, like pretty early 20s. I probably was about 24, I reckon. 23, 24, something like that. Yeah, really, really weird. Anyway, so transparency on this one. So I had recently watched my own video called Inheritance. Okay, because Inheritance actually does talk about stuff that if I talk about it now, it will ruin it. So watch that video. I can't really go into detail about that because if I just tell you what it's like, it completely ruins what the dream's all about, to be honest. So best thing to do with that one, I would have said Inheritance would be just to watch it. That's in season 1. Whereas Raw Meat, I just mentioned, that's in season 2. So I did that really, really recently. But that's the only thing. So I'd watch that video. Let's just say that does involve flames. Let's say it involves flames. So the fact that this is cooking meat and stuff like that is, I can see where there could be a little bit of a connection there potentially. So what were my thoughts on this? Well, with a name like Aaron obviously coming up more than once now, I imagine that could be significant. So, and I go into the name meaning of Aaron as well. So Aaron, obviously, he's a really significant character. What would you call it? Character makes it sound like fiction, doesn't it? That's not what I mean. Very figure. That's what I mean. Aaron is a very significant figure in the Bible. Okay, so Aaron as a name actually means mountain of strength, exalted, strong, and sometimes means warrior lion. Okay, so I think it depends on where. I think when it has multiple meanings, sometimes it's based on Aaron being a name used in a different region of of countries as well that takes on a slightly different meaning. But so that's what it came through as. So mountain of strength, exalted, strong, and sometimes warrior lion. So I put here, oddly, I just woke up from a lion dream. Now I don't have lion dreams very frequently, but I'm pretty sure that must be the one I can think of that has a lion in it. I'll find it. Is it called? I think that one's called TREELINE. I think that's TREELINE. That's season 2. So that's this season. I think it's TREELINE, but that's got a lion in it. But it's not frequent. I mean, I have had another lion one. I remember where I was being chased by a lion. But anyway. Oddly, I just woke up from one. So from a lion dream, which I didn't write down, but seeing warrior lion triggered the dream memory really, and I realised it seemed to match a previously unfilmed dream that I've logged. I still wonder whether office dreams, I'm writing down here, whether office dreams mean spiritual office or a kingdom office, meaning that, because in the majority of all of these dreams, I'm somewhat lost in an office, in that I'm trying to understand where I sort of fit in. Where's in this massive office? Where's my position? Where's my team? Let's say. So, and I've said a couple of times, where I think I'll see if I can find that one. So offices. Bear with me just 1 second. Sorry, I had a cough going there, and I thought, no point in me putting that on the video. I'll just quickly pause it. Again, it's quite dry in here with the radiators on. So I'll see if I can find that video that's got offices in it, but I break it down of all the New Testament and the Old Testament offices, what they involve, that kind of stuff. Because I thought, I kept on getting it. I thought, well, I'm going to look into that. So I have put that in the video. But anyway, moving on past that. So maybe that is what me getting these office dreams is all about, is finding my office, understanding my position within the office. Meaning, offices are like pastors, deacons, prophets, you've got kings, you've got all of these different ones, priests, high priests, all that sort of stuff. Anyway, so sorry, I saw high priest, I said high priest, I didn't mean that, sorry, I meant priest, really. So again, I've explored here Aaron as a name, as to whether there's anything there that kind of clicks into the dream, but it may well just be Aaron as his position. Well, what is his position within Israel? Well, he's the high priest. So I wonder if there is something to read into that. Well, given Aaron in this is cooking up meat on a very basic looking tool that's like a barbecue, like a skillet sort of thing, that's incorporated into the kitchen. It makes me think of Old Testament priestly duties of the burnt offering, is what it makes me think of. Obviously, all this smoke rising up makes you think of, the altar that say that you put the incense on, and the burnt offering, all that kind of stuff. That's what it made me think of. And how following the burnt offering, the tribe of Levi, the priestly tribe, would then eat the food sacrificed. So this is where it kind of clicked in, if you see where I'm going here, with the previous streams I just talked about, where I was talking about Muslim food and and how that's has a blessing over it, and how that can be a bit of a problem potentially, depending on your conviction. Really, I mean, a lot of this stuff I think happens, and you just don't know about it. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, it made me think of as a Levite whose their portion of what they would receive was, rather than land, they would receive one of the benefits was that they would have access to all the food and stuff like that comes from the sacrificial system. Just one of the elements. I didn't really want to expand upon that, because then I'd have to really think about what did they receive again and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, it makes me think of the Old Testament scripture that talks of specifically an example that I'm going to go through with you, which is of Hophni, so Hophni, and Phinehas, Phinehas, and they're the sons of the priest Eli, however you want to pronounce it. I see a lot of people in Israel pronounce it just Eli rather than Eli. Not that it matters. Eli. So they are the sons of a high priest. So again, I'm seeing this kind of connection with high priest and stuff like that, and meat sacrificed and stuff like that. So this is where I'm going to go with this. So that's actually all found in 1 Samuel chapter 2, verses 12 to 17. Is where it talks about this aspect of Hophni and Phinehas. So I'm just going to summarize it. So in summary, they were taking the wrong portion that they were due of the sacrifices, demanding raw meat, sending one of their servants with a 3-pronged fork to demand raw meat from the one making the sacrifice. So they would, basically up to the front, right, I'm taking that now. Like, well, it's barely even got in. We haven't done any of the stuff we need. You're supposed to, basically, they're supposed to have the food on the back end. After the foods have been, after the animals have been sacrificed, then they get to eat the food afterwards, not before, after. Okay, so they are looking for raw meat. So obviously, it's not been part of the burnt offering, has it? They're looking to take the raw meat, and so they send off one of their servants with a 3-pronged fork, and they're just taking this meat, looking to get all the best meat, most probably. And so it's so that it can be taken back and they can roast it instead of the traditional boiling of it, which was how they were meant to receive some of this as well. The servant could take it before it was offered. The servant would take it before it was offered to God. Another scripture that doesn't fit as well, but I just wanted to explore it, was Leviticus 10 verses 1 to 2, where it specifically talks of the 2 sons of Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, who were consumed by fire from the Lord due to offering what's called unauthorized fire, or strange fire is how it's kind of interpreted, on the altar. So not following the commands that they've been given. Obviously the food aspect makes more sense, I think, with Hophni and Phinehas. I'm pretty sure it was discussed at church actually around a similar time to when I had this dream. So I think it's probably a couple of weeks later or something like that. Or it may have been a couple of weeks before that I had the dream. But when I'm writing this down, a lot of my interpretation is coming after the fact. I am. Actually, I know we definitely cover that off in church to do with those particular parts. I can't remember what it's in connection with, though, to be honest. But of course, anyway, not immediately obvious as to what this dream was about. The raw meat, the poisoning aspect being in there also is obviously, really interesting that kind of matches up with that story to a certain extent. The hives I mentioned, yes, I've already talked about that. So checking for heaters, blah, 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 got hives, etc., etc. So that's really the end of those sets of dreams. So I haven't specifically gone and read out the scriptures, but what I'll do is I'll cite all of those so you can go in and actually read, all of those aspects of the Bible. You may well have your own opinions on what potentially these dreams do mean. I'm obviously welcome any kind of thoughts you have on it as well. What you think these could mean. I felt like that last couple there that were talking about, obviously, what was it about? Well, not so much, I suppose, that first one, which was talking about getting lost in the office. I mean, that's always happening. But that last one there, that was talking about Aaron and doing this barbecue thing in his house and what that represented. I thought that was really interesting, the way that kind of opened up once I started really sort of thinking about that. And I hope that hopefully that is the lesson, because of what you'll find with a lot of my dreams is they do take us on quite varied routes, but they're always, all of these dreams are always funneling me, towards reading scripture. It's most of my dreams are about bringing, I would have said, the Bible alive. Yeah, that's what I would sort of say. And they're dreams a way of kind of commuting different stories in the Bible. That's generally what I tend to find. A lot of them, not all of them, of course, but a lot of them are. Okay, but yeah, look in the description. You'll find obviously loads and loads of different scriptures listed. You're going to have quite a few different dreams there listed. Check them out. Check them out. There's stacks and stacks to choose from. I think I'm up to about 140 odd dreams now. I've kind of lost track as to where I'm at. Around about that. But interestingly, yeah, season 1 was 90 videos. So this has been, let's say, 50 so far, and that was covering 2.5 years, and this has been covering from September, I think it is, from August, September 2025 to present. So let's say 6 months, something like that. So last 6 months, there's 50 videos. It's been, I just have tons and tons in such a short space of time, really. Okay, I'll put together the descriptions and stuff. Sometimes I can be a little bit slow in doing that, just purely because of I just want to get the video on there and then I start putting it together. Because sometimes I'm straight into work and then it's right. Okay, I'll sort this out this evening, and then I put the description and stuff on there. So if you ever look at a video and see no description, it's purely because you've got there really early, and I haven't yet put it on there. But if you ever find, like a day or two later and there's still no description on there, just put a comment on the video and then I'll put that on there. But yeah, that would be unusual. To my knowledge, I haven't done that so far. Okay, that is it. Okay, hope you found that interesting. As I said, getting short on dreams now. Not too many left to go. All right, see you next one.